Well, hi there, folks. Welcome to the program. This, of course, is Stinchfield Podcast. We got a lot of news to cover today. I think the story that I'm so troubled, of course, by Obamagate, Russian collusion, which turns out there was no Russian collusion whatsoever. I think it's Obama collusion is the name of that story. But the story that captivated my mind yesterday, just to put the Obama stuff aside, is this harvested alive story. The idea that the organ donation industry is harvesting people's organs before they're even dead. And the evidence of this happening is far and wide. Thanks to RFK Jr., Health and Human Services, they do a study close to 400 cases. About a third of those cases had troubling abnormalities, okay? 29 of those cases, they believe the patient was still alive and quite possibly could have recovered. We've heard stories of people now stopping the organ donation right before the very last minute because family members saw a twinkle in the eye, maybe a tear, maybe a movement, and lo and behold, we have a full and total, complete recovery. We have got to get this organ donation stuff under control, and if we don't, I'm taking my name off the organ donation list. Now, I will tell you as we get into this podcast, some of the things that can be done and steps you can take to protect yourself from this happening to you. But when you hear some of the testimony of people that went through this, holy macaroni, and there are others who've been sounding the alarm on this organ donation stuff for a very, very long time. To me, it gets back to money, money, money surrounding our healthcare system, that you're going to take one life to save another life, and what's right there in the middle? Cash. And I think that's ultimately what it's all about. So before we get into that portion of the program and, of course, talk about Obama and the DOJ strike force now committed to taking next legal steps, looking into the next legal steps of how to go after Obama and clan, that's good news that strike force has been committed. We will talk about that on the program today. But before we do, I want to tell my friends about EnergizedHealth.com. This is about intracellular hydration, getting hydrated at a cellular level. This changes the game. Patent pending program that will get you hydrated at the cellular level. Joint pain starts to go away. Here's the real thing. You start to burn fat like crazy. Sexual health is increased. Skin issues start to go away. This is a mind, body, soul program that really works. How do I know? I lost 15 pounds in just 2 weeks on the Energized Health program. It's not hard. It's not a crazy diet, not crazy workouts. It's a very simple program that you can institute today, no matter what your age is, if you want to take back your life and finally get healthy. Do what I did and get with the folks at Energized Health. 100% money back guarantee, by the way. EnergizedHealth.com. That's EnergizedHealth.com. It's all about cellular hydration. Tell them that Grant Stinchfield sent you. With that, let's get the show started.
Uncensored and unapologetic. This is Stinchfield. Here's your host, Grant Stinchfield.
All right. Thank you for joining me today. So here is the myth about organ donation, that you are dead when your organs are harvested. In fact, it's just the opposite. Apparently, you have to be brain dead before your organs are harvested. They want your body still warm. They want your blood still flowing. This is when the organs are at their best. So this idea that you die in a car accident, you're dead there for an hour, you're wheeled back to the hospital, they take your organs, that's not how it works. They want you alive when they're taking your organs. This is a fallacy. This is Dr. Lynch, I believe his name is, spelling this fallacy out. Listen closely.
Brain death is a lie. So people don't even realize it's a lie anymore. But it's been a lie from the beginning, continues to be a lie. They invented brain death mainly to get organs, but then also so they don't waste money on treating people who aren't ever going to get a job, who are just going to live and not die. And so to see what brain death is, it's primarily a way to get organs. You cannot get any organs from a cadaver. Every organ that's transplanted is a healthy organ, and you can only get healthy organs from living persons. You cannot get any organs for transplant from a cadaver. The things I'm telling you is that you are not allowed to hear, because if you hear it, you will be upset, as you, all three of you are upset, and rightly so, you should be upset. Whose organs do they want? Certainly from all children, but especially the people who are 16 to 30, and their life is in jeopardy. If they're unconscious and on a ventilator, they're going to get their organs. Everybody who's called brain dead has a beating heart, circulation, and respiration. If they didn't have that, you wouldn't have to call them brain dead. You could call them dead.
Well, he makes a very good point. So that's 16 to 30. I guess I'm out of the woods at 56 years old. Still, I hate to recommend to take your name off of the donor registration, because the donating your organs when, I used to say when you die, but you don't donate them when you die. You donate them when you're unconscious, maybe a vegetable, and not coming back. But you do save lives. There are people that need our liver, our lungs, our heart, kidneys, all of these things. This is a tremendous gift of life you're giving. And I want to give that gift of life, but I don't want to give it if I'm not dead yet. I don't want to take away my life in order to give it to somebody else, unless it was my son or a loved one that I may be willing to do. Well, when you think about your kid, right? I would give up my life in a heartbeat if I could save my kid's life in and no pun intended, a heartbeat. And then you start to ask, would you give up your life to save the life of others? There are those situations where I think I would, where I know I would. But would you do it for a stranger? If you were alive, you had the chance of a complete recovery, but they're going to take your heart, no complete recovery after that, would you do it? No. I mean, maybe I'm selfish for that reason, but I don't want my life cut short if there's a chance of me having a full recovery as well. So this is frightening situation. This is what happened, what they call an honor walk, okay? This honor walk is when you're going in to give the gift of life, and they wheel you as you're going into the surgical room, and the nurses all stand there and pay homage to you. But apparently they only told this mother 3 hours before they were going to take her son's organs. 3 hours, and the son is still alive.
We're doing this today. They never told us they were doing this today. He has siblings. They're not going to get to say goodbye. They never told us they were doing this today. Never. Never. For money. For money. For money. This is all about money. This is all about money.
Give him a big hug and kiss.
We're doing a victory walk.
It's an honor walk.
An honor walk. And y'all just notified us 3 hours ago.
This is horrible.
The family only gets a 3-hour notice. If this was y'all, wouldn't y'all want more than 3-hour notice of this? Don't we have the right to more than a 3-hour notice? 3 hours.
Give him a hug.
Please take time to say goodbye to
My
Avery,
God.
please.
Give him a big hug and kiss.
Please.
Take the time to say goodbye. You got to be kidding me. And you get 3 hours. So what I've said is, I have a living will. I want to take my name off the organ donation list. I want to put it in the living will that I do want to donate my organs, but I want a 3-body panel. My very special lady friend, my son, and my sister Laura. I want those 3 to have a say, and top 2 votes wins. All right? And they get to say. I don't want the doctors making the final call. I don't want the hospital making the final call. I want that 3-judge panel making the call. I don't know. Seems like a good idea to me. I'm putting them in a rough spot when it comes to that. But what's interesting is story after story, we hear craziness like this.
When you go to sign up to be an organ donor, you go to the Department of Motor Vehicles and you see the brightly colored signs that say, give the gift of life. You're never offered a consent form. You're never told that when you become a brain dead organ donor, you are not biologically dead. These people have a beating heart, their lungs are working, their digestive system works, their kidneys work. People who have been declared brain dead have delivered healthy babies. These people are in no way dead. And there have been a couple cases just recently in the news. Terrence was what seems like a wonderful kid, a 19-year-old football player. He was in a motor vehicle accident and in the goodness of his heart got out of his car to go check on the people in the other vehicle when a third vehicle ran into him and gave him a terrible head injury. His parents have shocking and horrible videos that they posted on social media of them begging medical professionals to come and help their son, all to no avail because he had been declared brain dead. The other case is the case of Amber Ebanks. She was a 23-year-old Jamaican business student in New York. So she drove herself to Montefiore Hospital in the Bronx. 10 days later, according to her sister Kay and Dr. Paul Byrne, who examined her, she was declared brain dead, though, again, she had a beating heart. She had lungs that were working. She looked like every other patient in the hospital that was getting better. And her family fought for her. They wanted care for her, but they were pressured almost every other day. Doctors wanted to remove her life support. The organ procurement team actually showed up the very first day after her procedure, even before she was declared brain dead, being interested in seeing her become an organ donor, which her family refused.
It's unbelievable. So, notice she's for an organization called Respect for Life. We talk about saving babies in the womb. What about human life? Before you go harvesting organs, you better believe that I want every last chance of recovery to be there and to make sure that you can have every last chance of recovery. Well, you know who warned about this early on? Like early on, I think 10 years ago. Alex Jones has been sounding the alarm on this for a long time. Now, whatever you think about Alex Jones, there's an awful lot of stuff he says that is spot on.
So the baby's worth $500,000.
Who's paying that?
In the chain of delivery, just on time delivery. Each organ's worth a lot of money. And so, but if you kill them right on the spot, they're like, why are we wasting this 7 pounds of meat? So see, if they can keep them alive, and now they've built these new wings. They've built new wings. I can pull up. They have wings where they go, oh, we consider the baby dead. The mother decided it didn't live. If she decides we resuscitate and it lives, but it didn't resuscitate, its flesh, it's a legalese, it's passed into a special ward with doctors that make a few million a year, and the little flesh ball is kept alive and comfortable until all the orders come in, the planes land, and they take the organs, then they take the blood, and they take the skin, Joe. You see how it works? Now
Dude,
you know
you're freaking
why.
me out with this voice.
No, but see, it's a Southern loving voice.
Oh.
You see, my dad knew organ harvesters in Dallas, and he said, don't sign your organ donor card. They've got corrupt hospitals where if you're totally viable, they take your organs.
Oh, Jesus
And
Christ.
then I said, Dad, you're crazy, but I didn't sign the organ donor card. And then my dad owned a hospital, too, in Dallas. Then when I was a decade later at my grandparents' house before my grandpa died, watching 60 Minutes, and it was Dallas, Texas, and Chicago caught killing people that were viable to take their organs. Tonight, the 60 Minutes expose. And it was the freaking hospital my dad told me about.
Jesus Christ.
So, Joe, that's what I'm telling you is, were you at the kitchen table when you were 8 hearing about cyborgs? See,
No.
That's why I know about this. My dad never got fully into it. He decided to get out of it. And he decided to get out of it.
You're legitimately freaking me the fuck out.
Joe,
Yeah, well, I'm already freaking out as well. And in many respects, my goal is to freak you out because I want you to be well informed when you go into this. Now, there was congressional testimony, I believe it was yesterday or the day before. Kat Kamek from Florida did a great job questioning some witnesses. And you're thinking about this stuff and going, what in the world? This is America. I know they do this in China. I know they steal the organs of babies in these third world countries and sell them all across the globe. But I didn't know they do it in the United States. Why should we be surprised? After COVID, anything is possible. So I'm going to play some of the testimony from Kat Kamek here in just a minute. But I want you to know about my friends over at Patriot Protect. I did something amazing. I'm so glad I went to Patriot Protect, patriot-protect.com. I had all kinds of personal information on the web. And, you know, with me, a lot of people Googling my name, want to see where I live, want to see. It was all over the place. These data broker sites, you know, whitepages.com and all these things. My information all over the place, who my relatives are. Patriot-protect.com went on and got, if not all of it removed, 90-something% of it removed, because I can't find nearly the amount of information on me that was out there before, including phone numbers and all kinds of stuff. Now, this information, my passwords, your information, your passwords, is being sold on the dark web as we speak. Patriot Protect goes and searches the dark web. They contact hundreds of data broker sites, get your information taken off of those data broker sites. They find the information on the dark web. They get that removed. Oh, it is a turnaround. If you get those text messages, you know, random weird text messages, hey, what are you doing for dinner? That means your information was sold on the dark web, and those little text messages are tests to see if it's a viable number. Your information was sold. Get with patriotprotect.com. Take back your life. Patriot-protect.com/grant. Please do not forget the /grant. That's how we get credit on this program of sending you their direction. Patriot-protect.com/grant. Use the promo code GRANT for 15% off. Patriot-protect.com/grant. You will not regret it. This may be one of the best things you do today. Patriot-protect.com/grant. So, Kat Kamek has congressional testimony, and I'm going to play some of it here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to our second panel of witnesses for appearing here today. Now, as everyone knows, this committee has been investigating corruption from Oregon contractors for more than a year. In fact, I was in the last hearing that we had on this, and it was quite a contentious hearing. One issue that's pretty close to my heart.
You know what's amazing? I want you to just look at this, by the way, before we... There's like nobody in the hearing room. Like, where are all the members of Congress that should be there on that committee? Nobody cares?
Part is ensuring equal
Seats are
access
empty.
for life-saving transplants for patients with disabilities. Just last month, the House passed a bipartisan bill that I was proud to lead alongside my friend and colleague, Debbie Dingell, to end organ transplant discrimination against individuals with disabilities. So it is with total horror that I read a recent investigative report highlighting one of the most horrific cases of patient abuses. The New York Times detailed what happened to Misty Hawkins last year. She was a vibrant woman in Alabama who loved movies and dancing, but she also had a lifelong cognitive disability. After a tragic incident, Misty's mother agreed to organ donation. And I'm quoting from the report here about what happened next. Quote, a surgeon made an incision in her chest and sawed through her breastbone. Doctors discovered that her heart was still beating. She appeared to be breathing. They were slicing into Miss Hawkins while she was still alive. Now, this is not the first time that something like this has happened. In 2021, a doctor filed a case report about a woman with Down syndrome who was in an operating room being treated as an organ donor. During the harvesting of her organs, staff realized that her aortic and renal arteries were pumping and pulsing. In other words, she was not dead. The patient was given powerful drugs, fentanyl and lorazepam, and then, according to the doctor filing the case report, 18 minutes after she was first pronounced dead, she was pronounced dead a second time. This is something that you would see in the movies. But unfortunately, we're seeing real-world examples of this today. So I'm going to start with you, Mr. Formica. As a physician, I'm sure you are as horrified as I am. Were you invited to participate in the hearing on organ transplants last year?
I was invited, yes.
Why did you not appear?
I was given about 4 days' notice and couldn't get away from my clinical responsibilities.
I understand. Now, we discussed this back then, but I want to bring it to you now. HRSA's report included two particularly damaging conclusions about the federal organ contractor assigned to Kentucky, including, quote, its failure to recognize neurologic function inconsistent or unfavorable for organ donation, and its failure to work collaboratively with patients' primary medical teams.
All right. Remember when we were talking about being brain dead? What Kat Kamek just explained there was that this federal contractor who's in charge of organ donation for Kentucky is accused of not recognizing neurological activity that is inconsistent with organ donation, meaning you're not brain dead, meaning you have neurological activity that's saying, you know what, there's a chance of recovery here, and they're ignoring that, and they're not working with the patient's medical team. In fact, this is the invasion of the freaking body snatchers. This is being harvested alive. This is the ultimate theft. This is the ultimate burglary of your body parts while you're alive. And then what did they ultimately steal? Your freaking life. All for what? Money? I don't think it has anything to do with saving the others' lives, the people that need those organs. God bless them. I don't think it has to do with them. I think this has to do with money. Money, money, money. That's what our entire healthcare system has come down to, including whether or not you're an organ donor. They'll take your life for money. This crap is sick, man. I'm telling you. Play a little more.
If there are reasons to believe that some organ contractors are failing to recognize neurologic function issues inconsistent with organ donation, in other words, the patients could never recover or they were not suitable for organ donation, then I'm even more concerned about what that means for care given to patients with disabilities. Are you tracking with me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
I
so
share your concern about the patients with disabilities.
And you're under oath, so I want you to very clearly detail if you have heard of other reports similar to this with the very basic failures that have been outlined in what I have said.
The reports I've heard, I read that New York Times article. I shared your, I don't even know the verbs to put in there, so I won't do that. I've heard from HRSA secondhand that there's other cases. I have never been given the primary data for those.
Really?
Yeah, no, really. We have not been given access to the primary cases. We were told that they were happening. I haven't seen them. I haven't seen the.
All right. So apparently he's not getting the information. Do you believe him? I don't know. It looks like Kat Kamek's face says she doesn't believe him. I'm looking at the Rumble chat, and Liebuster writes, our son died about 12 years ago at age 23. And Liebuster, I'm so sorry to hear that. That is, no parent should ever be burying a child. And God bless you, and we'll pray for you and your family. We were told he was brain dead, and we were talked into organ donation. We are very disturbed and sickened at this news. I can only imagine what must be going through your head now at this news. So this is horrible. Do me a favor, Liebuster. I hope you're still on listening. Email me at grant at grantstinchfield.com, grant at grantstinchfield.com. I may want to ask you more about this situation and the pressure that they put on you, because that's the other thing. I hear they put great pressure on families to make this happen. Very scary. Now, I talked to Dr. Kelly Victory about this, and I'm going to play a little bit of that. She's an emergency medicine nurse. So she's actually not nurse, doctor. She's the head of emergency medicine for the wellness company. And her specialty is emergency medicine, Dr. Victory. I'm going to play a little bit of my conversation with her. The organ donor industry. Let me play the clip of Dr. Paul Byrne.
Brain death is a lie, and so people don't even realize it's a lie anymore. But it's been a lie from the beginning, continues to be a lie. They invented brain death mainly to get organs, but then also so they don't waste money on treating people who aren't ever going to get a job, who are just going to live and not die.
Is that true?
Unfortunately, I think that there is some truth to that. Clearly, there are people who meet the criteria of brain death. They cannot breathe on their own. They have no cognitive function. They have no evidence of feeling pain. We go through some of the things, for example, touching their eyeball with something. Normally, you would get a blink reflex. That's called the corneal reflex. That is absent. They don't show any indication of pain. In other words, their heart rate and blood pressure does not increase when there is painful stimuli, and on and on. So there are people, Grant, who clearly have complete, irreversible, permanent brain loss, and therefore are never going to, and we can determine those people as, quote, brain dead. But it's a slippery slope, because unless you go through the full course of studies, of evaluations, and particularly in cases where there's been an overdose or substance abuse, substance issues, you need to give adequate time to make sure that all of that has been metabolized and worn off. You need to make sure that the patient's body is warm. There are people who've been submerged in water, for example, for tremendously long periods of time, in excess of 30 minutes, who were declared dead, and then when they warm up, when the body warms up, they all of a sudden develop signs of life again. Well, and you start cutting corners in order to get an organ because you have a needy patient and you're desperate to get that kidney or that cornea or that heart, you can make a very, very bad decision, and this has got to be highly regulated.
Let me play one more clip for you, because I think this also highlights, I'm not an attorney, but this highlights the need for a living will. You could spell out all. So, again, Dr. Victory makes it clear that she's a firm believer that you can ultimately be brain dead, a vegetable, and at that point, your family, yourself, if you have a living will, makes a decision. But the last thing I want are organ donation harvesters making the decision about whether or not I'm ready to give up my organ. And as you heard Kat Kamek say, and the New York Times report, that there were neurological signs that were incompatible with organ donation and people were still offering up their organs. Folks, it's about as frightening as it gets. RFK Jr. deserves a very big thank you for this. Look, he wrote, and I'll just read his tweet before we move on to Obamagate. This is the tweet from RFK Jr. Quote, our findings show that hospitals allowed the organ procurement process to begin when patients showed signs of life, and this is horrifying. The organ procurement organizations that coordinate access to transplants will be held accountable. The entire system must be fixed to ensure that every potential donor's life is treated with the sanctity it deserves. You better believe it. This is about your rights. This is about your dignity, and this is about saving lives, not taking lives in the name of money. All right. I want to get to Obama collusion, which really is the story. We can't call it Russian collusion anymore. It's Obama collusion is what it is. And before I pop over to that, let me tell you about my friends over at Patriot Mobile. PatriotMobile.com is where I want you to go. I have a Patriot Mobile serviced phone. This is it right here. And let me tell you something. Fabulous. 100% U.S.-based customer service. The management team believes in the things that we believe in. They believe in America. They believe in the sanctity of life. They believe in free speech. They believe in gun rights. And every time you make a phone call, a portion of the proceeds they make from that phone call goes to support those things, including shows like this that allow us to get our message out in a fashion that helps to move the country in the right direction. So if you're not with Patriot Mobile, you are helping to fund the agenda of the woke left. The big three cell phone companies we know are all crazy leftists. Not switching to Patriot Mobile, there's no reason. You get to choose which network you're going to be on. Switching is easy. It only takes minutes with the U.S.-based customer service team. They've got a great deal for you to switch, so it's not going to cost you money. Ask them about it. And the guarantee of service is fabulous. PatriotMobile.com/Grant. That's PatriotMobile.com/Grant. Use the promo code Grant for a free month service and do what I did and get with Patriot Mobile. Okay. Tulsi Gabbard. How great is this woman? Boy, she is bringing the heat. Now, I want you to realize why this is happening now in President Trump's second term compared to why it didn't happen in President Trump's first term. You would have thought we could have gotten this information. Well, President Trump put his trust in the wrong people. I told you yesterday about Gina Haspel. She was one of the leaders of the CIA. At one point, she was President Trump's director of the CIA. She was the CIA station bureau chief in London, England, where the Steele dossier originated under Barack Obama. She had to have known full well that that thing was a complete and giant hoax. She ends up, who knows what role she played in all of this, but ultimately running the CIA for President Trump. No wonder we didn't get any information. And then you look at the FBI and who was leading the FBI. These were all deep state insiders. Now we got Kash Patel in there. Now we got Dan Bongino in there. Now we got, at the CIA level, John Ratcliffe. And John Ratcliffe's name is not mentioned enough. This guy is a hero for getting to the bottom of much of this information. Tulsi Gabbard's taking a lot of credit. She deserves it. But John Ratcliffe also needs to get a lot of credit in all of this because they are uncovering a treasure trove of information. So let's go through Tulsi Gabbard's comments. Comments, by the way, that CNN cut out of. Just watch this before we get to Tulsi Gabbard.
Multiple intelligence community assessments released in the months leading up to the November 2016 election concluded that Russia had neither the intent nor capability to impact the outcome of the U.S. election. On December 5th.
We've been listening there to the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, continuing on what has now been a multi-day effort, not only with public statements like this, but release of documents to attempt to back up the quite extreme allegation that President Obama is guilty of treason and that he worked in some sort of conspiracy with Hillary Clinton, etc., in the assessment by the intelligence community at the time that Russia interfered in the 2016 election.
I let it play out because I want you to see what we're up against. Instead of letting his viewers hear the allegations and the evidence that Tulsi Gabbard has had and collected about the allegations that Barack Obama engaged in this treasonous behavior, they cut away from it and then call it extreme allegations, meaning, wink, wink, unbelievable allegations, and unbelievable in the fashion that they don't want you to believe it. Unfathomable, not true, whatever you want to call it, CNN. The reality is she lays out this with evidence, okay? With evidence.
I'm going to go over the key findings from the House Intelligence Report, which investigated the claims that were made by an intelligence community assessment ordered by President Obama and published in January of 2017. First, Putin's principal interests relating to the 2016 election were to undermine faith in the U.S. democratic process, not show any preference of a certain candidate. In fact, this report shows Putin held back from leaking compromising material on Hillary Clinton prior to the election, instead planning to release it after the election to weaken what Moscow viewed as an inevitable Clinton presidency. In the January 2017 intelligence community assessment that President Obama ordered, John Brennan, who was CIA director at the time, and the intelligence community intentionally suppressed intelligence that showed Putin was saving the most damaging material that he had in his possession about Hillary Clinton until after her potential and likely victory. The report goes into great detail about the information that Russia and Putin had on Hillary Clinton, which included possible criminal acts like secret meetings with multiple named U.S. religious organizations in which State Department officials offered, in exchange for supporting Secretary Clinton's campaign for the presidency, significant increases in financing from the State Department. They also had documents that showed the patronage of the State Department to State Department employees who would go and support Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. There were high-level DNC emails that detailed evidence of Hillary's, quote, psycho-emotional problems, uncontrolled fits of anger, aggression, and cheerfulness, and that then Secretary Clinton was allegedly on a daily regimen of heavy tranquilizers. Then CIA Director Brennan and the intelligence...
Wait a second. Hold on a second. that Hillary Clinton was under a heavy dose of tranquilizers. Well, this explains a lot of her wacky-ass behavior. So this is what I would consider new information. It's not in there by accident. This is designed to throw a little shot across the bow at Hillary Clinton. But the reason I play this all for you is because this is must-hear information that the media is holding back from you.
This community mischaracterized intelligence and relied on dubious, substandard sources to create a contrived false narrative that Putin developed a quote-unquote clear preference for Trump. Brennan and the IC misled lawmakers by referencing the debunked Steele dossier to assess quote-unquote Russia's plans and intentions, falsely suggesting that this dossier had intelligence value when he knew that it was discredited. The intelligence community excluded significant intelligence and ignored or selectively quoted reliable intelligence that contradicted the intelligence community assessment's key findings on Putin's alleged support for Trump. Including this intelligence reporting would have exposed the ICA's claim as implausible, if not ridiculous. The intelligence community assessment omitted reliably sourced information, such as how some Russian intelligence officials were quote-unquote planning for candidate Hillary Clinton's victory, while others assessed neither Trump nor Clinton would respect Russia's interests. As was reflected in the ODNI documents that we released on Friday, multiple intelligence community assessments released in the months leading up to the November 2016 election concluded that Russia had neither the intent nor capability to impact the outcome of the U.S. election. On December 5th of 2016, the FBI and ODNI gave the House Intelligence Committee its first post-election classified briefing, in which there was no mention of Putin aspiring to elect Trump by either agency. The Presidential Daily Brief, drafted on December 8th of 2016, stated that no Russian or criminal actors impacted vote counts. This document was pulled just hours before it was to be published due to quote-unquote new guidance.
Why do you think it was pulled? It was pulled because then General Michael Flynn would have had access to that presidential briefing because President Trump was now starting to take part in these briefings. So they pull it back because they don't want General Flynn to read it. They don't want General Flynn to blow the lid on everything. And by pulling it back, that was the real key to the cover-up because it allowed everything else to move forward now.
If it had been published, it would have been briefed to both President Obama and President-elect Donald Trump. On December 9th, 2016, a National Security Council meeting was called to gather President Obama's senior national security officials, which included CIA Director Brennan, then Obama DNI James Clapper, Susan Rice, and others. Following that secret meeting, DNI Clapper's assistant sent an email to the intelligence community with the subject line, POTUS tasking on Russia election meddling, tasking ODNI leaders to create a new assessment per the president's request. The House Intelligence Committee Oversight Report that we released today.
So think about that. These are facts. The media cannot dispute them. These are not made up emails. These are emails that were discovered through searching through CIA archives and files that says the director of the CIA tasked his intelligence community under the direction of POTUS, that was Barack Obama at the time, to come up with an alternative assessment. Meaning, you know what? I don't like this. Go make it so it's Russia infringed on the election on Trump's behalf. This is what we want. Go find that, and then let's release that. That's the treasonous behavior.
It reveals that, quote, unlike routine intelligence community analysis, the intelligence community assessment was a high-profile product ordered by the president, President Obama. It directed senior intelligence community agency heads and created an intelligence community assessment limited to just 5 analysts using one principal drafter. This is not something that occurs in the normal path of producing an intelligence community assessment that reflects the views across the intelligence community. The production of...
So they threw normal protocol to the wind so they could get the assessment they want. And they had to have somebody that was on board. So another deep stater, Obama insider, one that's going to push the radical agenda of the left and stop Trump at all costs. Remember, The book Alan Dershowitz wrote, Get Trump, this is what he meant by that.
This intelligence community assessment was subject to unusual directives directly from the president and senior political appointees, especially the former director of the CIA, John Brennan. The House Intelligence Committee Oversight Report also shows how later that same day, on December 9th, Brennan ordered the publication of quote-unquote substandard reporting on Russian activities, which had previously been withheld from publication of prior assessments because the information was judged, quote, to have not met long-standing publication standards. Some of the information later used in the Obama-ordered assessment over the objections of veteran CIA officers was, quote-unquote, unclear or from unknown sources. The Intelligence Committee's oversight report reveals that CIA Director Brennan overruled senior CIA officers who challenged the Obama-ordered intelligence assessment, stating, quote, we don't have direct information that Putin wanted to get Trump elected. Yet, the Obama-directed assessment was published on January 6, 2017, which explicitly stated, quote, we assess Putin and the Russian government aspired to help President-elect Trump's election chances when possible by discrediting Secretary Clinton and publicly contrasting her unfavorably to him, end of quote. The CIA and FBI, then led by John Brennan and James Comey, expressed high confidence in this judgment, while the NSA expressed moderate confidence. Yet, as the report we released today shows, the ICA, the Intelligence Community Assessment, did not cite any report where Putin indicated helping Trump win was an objective.
So not one report that found that Putin was helping Trump. Not one. Yet they still came to that assessment.
It is true. With regards to the Steele dossier, we now know that one of the source documents that the Obama administration used in the creation of this intelligence assessment in January of 2017 was none other than the discredited, unverified Steele dossier. The House Intel report states, quote, contradicting public claims by then CIA Director Brennan that the dossier was not in any way incorporated into this intelligence assessment. The dossier was referenced in the intelligence assessment's main body text and further detailed in a 2-page assessment annex. John Brennan lied, and he denied using this dossier in this intelligence assessment that President Obama ordered because he knew it was discredited. It was a politically motivated, manufactured document. He directed senior CIA officials to use it anyway.
So, John Brennan, I believe, testified under oath that he didn't use the Steele dossier in this assessment. Yet now it's proven dead to rights that he did. So again, they're lying and they're caught in their lies. And I believe the conspiracy goes on today. Many of these people are still on CNN and MSNBC pushing the same lies, trying to cover for themselves to this day, which means the conspiracy continues. You want to talk about a statute of limitations? Well, if the crime's not over, the statute of limitations hasn't started. This conspiracy continues as we speak.
A officer told the House Intelligence Committee staff as they investigated this, quote, the director of the CIA, John Brennan, refused to remove it. And when confronted with the dossier's many flaws, responded, quote, yes, but doesn't it ring true? Even the bipartisan Senate Select Committee on Intelligence report published in 2020 criticized the FBI's handling of the Steele dossier, noting its completely unverified nature and purposeful sidestepping of intelligence community procedures in its use. Now, President Obama, Hillary Clinton, John Brennan, James Clapper, James Comey, and others, including their mouthpieces in the media, knowingly lied as they repeated the contrived narrative that was created in this January 2017 intelligence community assessment with high confidence as though it were fact. John Brennan, as CIA director, stated in a memo to his agency staff in December of 2016, saying, quote, there is strong consensus among us on the scope, nature, and intent of Russian interference in our presidential election. This was reported by NBC News, confirming that Brennan, along with James Clapper and James Comey, agreed with the CIA's assessment that Russia intervened to help Trump win the presidency. As Obama's Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper was tasked with overseeing the creation of this assessment in January of 2017 by President Obama, and he expressed confidence in its findings. In a 2018 interview with the Harvard Gazette, he talked about how he provided Trump with the same classified assessment that President Obama received, which included the high confidence judgment that Putin directly ordered the hacking and election interference. Clapper then went on to add, "I think they, the Russians, actually influenced the outcome." This is a brief summary of the details that you'll find within the House Majority Staff's report in their investigation into the Obama-directed January 2017.
So she basically lays it all out. And the reason why I played all of it, that was 10 minutes and change. The reason I played all of it is because the media won't do it for you. I know it's not the most exciting thing to sit through and listen to, but when she lays it out step by step, you can see the collusion. You can see the plot and the scheming on behalf of Clapper and Comey and Obama. And she didn't mention Joe Biden, but he was in the room for much of it. All of these players now need to be held accountable. Will they ever be held accountable? I've told you that treason is the one charge that has no statute of limitations. But the definition of treason in Merriam-Webster is much different than the definition of treason in our code of law here in the United States. I'm going to spell out to you the difference between treason as a word and treason as a legal term in the United States, and then let you decide whether Barack Obama can be charged with treason or not. It's pretty fascinating to go through this word treason, what it means, and we throw it around a lot. But before we do that, I want to tell you about my friends over at the Wellness Company, twc.health/Grant. Use the promo code GRANT for 10% off. This is the emergency medical kit. You have ivermectin in here. You've got a Z-Pak in here. You've got amoxicillin, 8 of the most common antibiotics, antivirals, antiparasitics. If you don't have one of these in your house, you are not fully prepared for disaster. Drugstores closed down. You want to have prescription medications for you and your family. Then I'm hot. You hear me talk about it all the time. I am on the Parasite Cleanse from the Wellness Company. This Parasite Cleanse, mebendazole and ivermectin, is fabulous. 60 million Americans have parasites, skin issues, brain fog, digestive issues. This is going to help you actually. If you got it in your gut, this is going to do away with some of that beer belly look, okay? Mebendazole, ivermectin, FDA approved to get rid of parasites. Parasites are real. They can infect your brain. This is like a clean out of the system, and I love it. What I want is a clean out of my system. So go to twc.health/Grant. Use the promo code GRANT for 10% off. Get the parasites out of your system. Get the prescription medications in your closet just in case you need them in case of emergency. And then look at all of the other supplements they have on there. And I promise you, the Wellness Company can help you. Their team of doctors are great. All natural, all made in the United States. Everything right here because it is the Wellness Company. twc.health/Grant. Okay. Treason, right? What is it? All right. I told you, Jan, that I was going to let you play Mr. Prosecutor.
It's a game show. Is this treason? All right.
Now, we throw the word treason around pretty loosely, and I think conservatives have been guilty of throwing treason around a long time surrounding Barack Obama.
Right.
Now, according to the definition from Merriam-Webster, I think Barack Obama is guilty of treason, the word. Okay?
Let's hear. Can you give us a definition first to start the show?
This is Merriam-Webster's definition of treason.
Okay.
Okay? The offense of attempting by overt acts to overthrow the government of the state to which the offender owes allegiance, or to kill or personally injure the sovereign or the sovereign's family.
Okay.
Okay? Now, I think Barack Obama, it's pretty clear these were overt acts to overthrow the government to which Barack Obama owes allegiance. He's president of the United States. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that.
Okay. Would you like to hear the criminal code 18 U.S. Code 2381 treason.
Okay, so this is the legal code, not the definition.
Not
in
the
language.
definition. So
All right.
treason, this goes back to like Shakespeare, right?
Right.
The Merriam-Webster definition is, hey, you're trying to overthrow the government you owe allegiance
Easy peasy.
to. That's
You try to kill the
treasonous
king.
behavior.
Yeah, you try to kill the king or the king's family. Treason.
Right.
Yeah.
Most certainly, by my definition of treason, Barack Obama, Clapper, they're all engaged in it. They're supposed to be, they took an oath to America, and now they're trying to run a soft coup.
Right. They're trying to knock him out.
That's treasonous.
Mm-hmm.
But according to the legal code, it's not as simple.
Okay, let's hear it.
All right, but words are important, so let's go through this. Quote, whoever, owing allegiance to the United States, levies war against them, or adheres to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort within the United States or elsewhere, is guilty of treason and shall suffer death or shall be imprisoned not less than 5 years and fined under this title, but not less than 10,000, and shall be incapable of holding any office under the United States.
So basically, you come in and you're harboring a terrorist, like a 9/11 terrorist. You could be guilty of treason.
You could be guilty of treason. So, but let's go through the words because this is about enemies for the most part. Now, did Barack Obama help enemies? Was Hillary Clinton an enemy? I know we all say, yes, she's an enemy of the state. The media is the enemy of the state. But let's go into court.
Well, I would say if I'm making an argument, the people voted for President Trump in an election, the people of the United States. The people in charge that we're talking about here thought that they knew better than the voting public, and they thought they knew better to get him out of office, and they would be considered an enemy of the state or an enemy of the people.
Maybe. I don't think it's a bad way to look at it. Maybe, but you see what's having to happen here is we're having to make where it'd be much easier if you had
Al Qaeda come in here and do something. If you have to make this argument against Al Qaeda, right?
China comes in. We're going to know if Obama helped China.
Right.
That's treason, which is why, do you remember when Milley said he was going to give a phone call to China?
That's why people had a good case on that one, yeah.
That's a good case for treason.
Of course.
That really was. But let's go through this word for word because whoever owing allegiance to the United States, clearly, even more than you and me, President Trump and Barack Obama owes allegiance to the United States. They took an oath of allegiance to the United States. Okay? So whoever owing allegiance to the United States, clearly Obama, Clapper, and all those who took an oath fall into that.
And to defend her, by the way.
And to defend her, exactly. But that isn't in here. Okay? Whoever owing allegiance to the United States, comma, levies war against them. Okay, now this is easier because certainly you could say this was levying a war against the United States.
Of course.
Right? I mean, this is, and then you get the word or. Now, I know it sounds like we're getting into the weeds, but in legal terms, and or
right.
are very different words.
Because it's one or the other or both. Basically.
Or both.
Right.
Right? So this says, whoever owing allegiance to the United States levies war against them, boom. That to me is treason. And then it says, or adheres to their enemies, giving them aid, comfort within the United States or elsewhere.
But you got him on the first one.
I think you can get him on the first one.
Right.
Now, you got a lot of legal scholars. In fact, on my program 2 nights ago, a Heritage Foundation constitutional scholar says, yes, the 18 U.S. Code 2381 deals with treason and aiding and abetting the enemy. But as I read, and I hadn't read the statute before he came on, as I read the statute, whoever owing allegiance to the United States levies war against them or
doesn't have to be
adheres
both.
to their
right.
enemies. I don't think so. So I think you got a case for treason. And the reason why this is important is because there is no statute of limitations for treason.
Right. Everything else is running out or has run out.
Now, think about what President Trump was up against. Gina Haspel was the CIA station chief in London, England.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? She also, if you remember that name, for 2 years
Sure do.
became President Trump's top dog at the CIA. She was the director of Trump's CIA.
Yep.
Where did the Steele dossier come from, Jen, if we're going to play a game show?
It came from the CIA.
And England.
And Hillary Clinton and Christopher Steele, who was from England. That's right.
Yes, it originated in London. That's where the Steele dossier originated in. So you're telling me that Gina Haspel didn't know or wasn't in on the know that the Russian collusion hoax was fake, phony fraud? Of course she was. She was the top dog at the CIA where the Steele dossier came from.
Just to jump in on that real quick, just to add a little point. Yesterday, Tulsi was being asked by the media, well, why wouldn't this come out during Trump's first administration? You remember that?
Yeah.
And it was because President Trump was surrounded by swamp creatures in his first administration. This is why everybody went nuts about Pete Hegseth. Everybody went nuts about Kash Patel. Everybody went nuts about Tulsi Gabbard because they were not part of the swamp. And they knew that this was going to be the difference maker because Trump was playing by the rules during his first administration and hired people he thought he could trust that were just as involved in the swamp as anybody else. It's the difference.
Think about this. You had the woman who had to have known at the very least that the Steele dossier was bogus. That's her intel analysts in London have to be coming up with this. It originated in London. So she knows now she's in charge of the CIA.
Yeah.
She can cover the tracks of anybody she wants. She can hide. This is, you're exactly right. Why didn't we see it? Because you had people like
working against
Gina Haspel behind the scenes. Now, I don't know her level of guilt in all of this. I don't. But I sure know that she was connected to all these people. Nobody's talking about her name whatsoever, and that's a name that needs to be talked about.
You know, it was interesting, too. I was just going through all of this coverage again. It really is interesting because all of this we knew, I think, in bits and pieces, but putting it all together right now and then remembering back to some of the names that were involved. Do you remember? I mean, you said that she must have known it was fake. They all knew it was fake, Grant. Every single one of them. Comey knew, Clapper knew, Brennan knew, and Clapper even was confronted by someone in his own office. This came out, I was reminded about yesterday. Reminded by someone in his own office, he said, hey, this is all unsubstantiated, these claims. And Clapper looked at him and said, but doesn't it ring true?
Yes,
you cannot put something out that you think rings true. I think a lot of crazy things, but you can't call that intelligence if you don't know.
Look, it's one thing if you're Hillary Clinton and you hired some jamoke to get this report and your campaign releases it and you spewed. Now, morally, that's inept. Okay, that's moral ineptitude.
But politically, it's what happens.
It's what happened. I don't even know if it's illegal. But once you've now passed this on to the intelligence community, and the intelligence community knows it's bogus,
and they say it
passes it up.
But you know what? It sounds reasonable that Trump was in Russia doing all these horrific things. I mean, come on.
And think about it, Jen. What's happening? The media is still ignoring it.
Mm-hmm. And you know what's even worse? It doesn't even matter if they backtrack now and don't cover it, because here's the thing. 50% of the country believes that Trump had all the tinkling stuff going on in Russia still because they've never seen the retraction. Yeah. That's the danger of the news media being complicit in this, is they never retract when they put out the false narratives.
Never.
855-785-82.
Never. They never retract. And that's going to be the theme of the Real America's Voice show tonight, is the media culpability in all of this. You know, that's something we have not talked a lot about. We all know that the media is fake news. We know that they're devious. But what was their role? What was the extent of the media's role to push this fake news narrative when conservative commentators like myself were all saying this is bogus, it's false? You have then the mainstream media countering us. They had to have known it was bogus, yet they went with it anyway, because they are an arm of the Democrat Party. Who controls who? I've told you, I believe the media controls the Democrats, not the other way around. But we're going to lay that all out for you on the Real America's Voice show tonight. That's going to do it for us today, folks. It is great to have you with me. Don't forget Real America's Voice, 7 p.m. Eastern time tonight on Rab. You get a Roku, Pluto, all the places, or right here on Rumble or Getter or the great places. Subscribe to the podcast. If you're watching right now on Rumble, we got a nice little audience there. Thank you for that. Please subscribe. Please hit the like button. Please share this. Copy the link. Share it on X, wherever you can, or your Truth Social account. This is how we spread the word. And God bless all of you. Stinchfield's Army rolls, and the reason we do is because of all of you. I'm Grant Stinchfield. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.